How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Creative Collision Podcast. This is Saeed here, bringing you a new episode. On this episode, I'm going to talk about the DJ Premier versus RZA beat battle that took place on Instagram last Saturday night. Just my thoughts on it, who I think won, how big of a night that was, how amazing that was, and what it means for hip hop. And hopefully we get to see more battles like that. So after I talk about that, I'm going to get into other beat battles that I would like to see happen between other producers or other rappers, possibly having like a rap battle where they can go song for song. And I have a couple artists in mind who I think would be really dope if they square off against each other. So I'm gonna get into that and let's get into it. So the DJ Premier versus RZA beat battle took place on Instagram Live last Saturday night. Great, just a great time for hip hop. It was an amazing moment for hip hop. DJ Premier and RZA are two of the greatest hip hop producers of all time. Two legends in the game. If you know about them, I don't have to go into like how epic and deep their discography is. So as soon as it was announced a couple of days before that, I was all up for it. The whole hip hop community on social media was like, oh hell yeah, this is gonna be amazing, and it definitely lived up to the hype. Excuse me, it was pretty legendary, man. I'm a big fan of both of these guys already, but I had to get reminded as well about like how great they truly were, because I know DJ Premier and RZA are two legends, two of the Mount Rushmore of hip hop producers in history of rap. So knowing that already, I was expecting to know. I mean, every song they played I heard before, but I still kind of forgot like how deep their discographies were. Like, it was so fucking crazy to see how many fucking classic songs both of these guys have made, and just how legendary their discography truly is, especially with RZA. Because it's a little different. The difference between Primo and RZA going into it is that with Primo, I already know. When I think of Primo, there's like 10 songs I already know pop into my head that are like classics, because Primo has worked with more different artists than RZA. Like Primo, I think of Primo, I think of his beats for Nas. I think of his beats for Biggie. I think of his beats for Jay-Z. I think about the shit he did, of course, with Gangstar and with Guru, R.I.P. Guru. So I already like have these different songs, like Above the Clouds comes to my head. New York State of Mind comes to my head. Nas's Light comes to my head. Unbelievable comes to my head. The Evils pops into my head. Like there's like all these songs that already pop into my head when I think of Primo. And with RZA, it's different because I know RZA's great, but his discography is so, first of all, it's so centered around Wu-Tang, and those songs, even though Wu-Tang has classics, you still kind of like, you have to remind yourself of how deep Wu-Tang's discography truly is, and how much work RZA put into those Wu-Tang albums. I think RZA had arguably the greatest 5-year run any hip hop producer has ever had, from 93 to 97. 93 is when Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers came out. Classic album, of course. And then he had, the Wu-Tang solo albums that he produced, the bulk of those albums, right? So you had Met the Master Cow, you had Only Built for Cuban Links, a classic album. Liquid Swords, a classic album. Then you had Return of the 36 Chambers, Old Dirty Bastard. You can argue that's a classic album. And you come back in 97 with a double album, Wu-Tang Forever, and that's a classic album. So between a 5-year period, he he produced like 5 or 6 like classic albums in a 5 year period. He was like the main producer for like almost 100% of these songs on like you can argue at least 4 of these are classics, right? Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers, Luchasaurus, Cuban Links, and Wu-Tang Forever. All 4 of those are for sure classics. Then you had Takao and Return of 36 Chambers. So you can make the argument for those as well. So pretty fucking amazing. So because his discography is so deep, and that's not even thinking, that's still without thinking about all the shit he produced after 97. But just in that 5 year period alone, his discography was so deep, I kind of like forgot how great RZA truly is. And that's kind of fucked up to say. It's kind of sad to say because I'm not supposed to forget this type of shit as a hip hop head, but I got reminded how great RZA is, because going into this battle, I'm not gonna lie, I thought Primo would win fairly easily, and that's just because, like I said, there's these like Primo songs that immediately come to my head when I think about Primo, and it was on Twitter. It was Crooked Eye, King Crooked. Shout out to Crooked Eye, or King Crooked, he goes by now. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you guys should. He is one of the best hip hop accounts to follow on Twitter. He talks hip hop all day and has, interacts with his fans. So shout out to King Crooked. So on Twitter, he posted a "Who do you think is going to win?" poll, and it was overwhelmingly Primo. Primo had a 75%. 75% of people thought Primo was going to win, to only 25% for the RZA. And Crooked was like, "Oh, this is how you guys really feel? Like, you guys are like not even, you guys don't even know what RZA has in his bag." And then after the battle was over, he posted another poll. Now, who do you think won? And that poll, I still voted for Primo. I still preferred Primo slightly more, but it was a lot closer than I expected. It was like Primo 55% to RZA 45% in that poll, and yeah, shout out to both of them. They both did their thing. RZA, I think RZA really reminded a lot of people that Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with, like straight up. Yeah, it was just so dope. I think the best part of that night was seeing how the hip hop community all came together to watch this shit. So, literally everybody was on there. You had like just about every hip hop account, every rapper that has an Instagram account was on there. I bet even some people even made Instagram accounts just to watch it. And you had like old and new. Like there was old school dudes on there. I think at one point Primo said Marley Marl was on there. Like you had dudes from the 80s, like the pioneers of hip hop were on there watching it, and all the way to all the young kids, like all the young producers and rappers that are out now were on there too. So you had like, OGs that are even that came even before Primo and RZA on there, that just know how great they are watching it. Then you had young dudes in the game that are inspired and influenced by the RZA and Primo on there watching it as well. And if you know like RZA and Primo, there's so many copycats of them. There's two of the most influential producers. Not only are the two of the greatest, but two the most influential, easily producers in hip hop history. So I thought it was just so dope to see everybody on there, the whole hip hop community. This is a battle that I believe will be talked about forever. Like 5-10 years from now, we're gonna look back at this battle on Instagram Live and be like, guys, remember like during that time during quarantine when RZA and Primo fucking went beat for beat on Instagram Live, and This was definitely like a moment, a historical moment in hip hop, and yeah, I mean, let's we'll do a quick recap of every beat. I'll go through that real quick. Let's start off here, going beat for beat. Round. Let's see. Yeah, round one. It was Liquid Swords versus A Million One Questions. I went with Jay on that one, for Primo, I should say. Round two, Bring the Pain, Breaking the Rules. I went with Primo there. Maria versus Mathematics. I went Premiere. So I still slightly preferred Premiere. Big L's Enemy versus Wu Gambino's. Wu Gambino's is one of my favorite Wu Tang collaboration songs, so I get that round to RZA. Run, that just beat's fucking sick. Dude, Run, he produced for Ghostface versus MCs Act Like They Don't Know for Primo. RZA gave RZA that one. Shame on it to Das Effects, Real Hip Hop. Primo. Protect Your Neck, Living Proof. I had Living Proof on that one. Cold World, that shit's amazing. I got that one over Devil's Pie. Like, it was back and forth for for the most part. Let's just not go into all the rest of these because it was too close too close for comfort. I just like how they kind of bounced off each other. Like when RZA played Verbal Intercourse, and then Primo followed back with Now Just Like, that shit was dope. And then there was a moment where the RZA played what do you play, what's the Biggie song? What was it? I forgot. It was no kicking. It wasn't kicking. It was You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You. I think that's what he played. Give me a second here to look that up. No, Long Kiss Goodnight. I'm sorry about that. So when RZA played Long Kiss Goodnight, and then Primo hit RZA like, oh, you played a Biggie song. You played one of my guys, so let me get you one of your guys. And he played Above the Clouds, which we were all waiting on for a while at that point. So yeah, it was amazing. It was a great time for hip hop, and something that we all needed at this time. So I had a slightly Primo. I think Primo beats I prefer a little bit more, but RZA really showed, like, he's one of the greatest ever. And I mean, we already knew that, but he kind of reminded everybody that he's one of the greatest producers ever, and that he can go toe to toe with anybody. So yeah, dope ass beat battle. I also think for what it did too, for people who were not too familiar with DJ Premier and RZA, it brought more fans in. So now they're gonna check for Wu Tang's discography and DJ Premier's discography. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the next day on streaming platforms, you saw that their music was trending. So yeah, shout out to both of them. Shout out to them for putting this together. I think Swiss Beats and Timbaland put this together, so shout out to them as well for making that happen. And yeah, let's get into other topics here. So shout out to them, and yeah, let's talk about now what other battles I would like to see. One of them that came to mind right away, and I saw this one trending on Twitter, would be Alchemist versus Madlib. I think that would be dope. Madlib, I mean, I would go with Madlib on that one. Madlib is one of my all-time favorite producers. But I think it'd be a lot closer than people would expect, similar to what RZA and DJ Premier's battle was, where a lot of people at least that I saw on Twitter, were with all thought DJ Premier would win pretty handily, but it ended up being a lot closer than that. And by the end of it, it was like basically a flip, a coin flip as to who won. And Alchemist versus Madlib, I feel like people would be kind of similar. Like on Twitter, they would be like, "Oh, Madlib's got this easily." But then when you realize how deep Alchemist's bag is, like, ends up being a lot closer than what people expect. So I think it'd be a really interesting battle. I would still go with Madlib, but I think that would be a very, very dope battle, very interesting. Everybody's talking about Dr. Dre. Like, who would Dr. Dre square off against? And Dre's one of the Mount Rushmore producers. He's, he could have easily done a battle with Primo or RZA as well. But seeing that they already battled, I think a good matchup for Dr. Dre. I think the only one that can match Dr. Dre in terms of like not just quality of beats, but also like just having like kind of big big songs and recognizable songs like that is Kanye. Kanye has those amazing, some great amazing beats, but also has the hits to match with Dr. Dre. And I think that'd be an interesting battle, Dre versus Kanye. It's kind of, I think it ended up being a matter of preference, what you prefer more, but I could see that happening for sure. I actually think Kanye can go up against a few different people. Dre being one of them. I think another one that would be really good that people are kind of sleeping on is Kanye versus Q-Tip. Now, Q-Tip, I think people underrate how good of a producer Q-Tip is. Think about like the Tribe Called Quest albums and how influential those albums and Q-Tip's production was on Kanye, because Kanye would tell you Q-Tip was one of his influences as a beat maker. So I think that'd be pretty dope, kind of student versus teacher type of thing. Kanye definitely has more hits than Q-Tip, but in terms of like quality of beats and just going blow for blow with with their beats, I think it'd be pretty close. So yeah, that's, I don't know. I mean, these guys might be too big for it. Dr. Dre and Kanye, I don't know if they would do some shit like that. I doubt it, but it's something that I would like to see. I could see Q-Tip doing it. I can definitely see Q-Tip doing it. But let's try to make that happen. Fuck it. I mean, if Primo and RZA were able to come together and do it, and Swiss Beats and Timbaland were able to come together and do this, who's to say they can't get Dr. Dre and Kanye to do something, right? So those are a couple of battles I would like to see: Alchemist versus Madlib, Kanye versus Dre, or Kanye versus Q-Tip, or even here's another one: Kanye versus his mentor No ID. That shit, I think that'd be pretty dope too. Another one that I could see Alchemist, if Alchemist doesn't go up against Madlib, Alchemist versus Havoc. Havoc's another underrated producer, Havoc from Mobb Deep. I think he's very underrated, overlooked. So Alchemist and Havoc, two guys who are both underrated, to be honest. I think that'd be pretty dope too. So just a few thoughts on there. And then I have a rapper one. I have a couple rapper battles that I would like to see happen. So for rappers, I guess the way you would go about it would just be maybe song for song. You can look at it. I think it's a little bit more. It's definitely more. There's more to it than with producers. Because with rappers, it can be song for song, but are you gonna judge it in terms of how good a song is, how big of a hit it was, or like which song is like more lyrical, like which rapper is more lyrical in this song versus that song. So there's a few ways to go about it. If you want, I think if you're gonna do like just what song is a dope, a better fucking song, like which song has better lyrics, which song is like has a better, just a better like overall song, then you can do like Jay-Z versus Nas. And I know Jay-Z versus Nas has been a fucking battle, and we've already seen that, right? But I think it'd still be really dope to go like a song for song, lyric for lyric, Jay-Z versus Nas battle, to end the debate once and for all. Because even though Jay-Z and Nas ended their beef like 15 years ago already, people still fucking debate this shit all day, every day, fucking all the time. You still see Ether versus Takeover, Jay versus Nas. There's still fans of both of these artists that are split and don't like each other. Like, just to end the debate once and for all, do like a Jay-Z versus Nas song for song, lyric for lyric battle. And I think that'd be fucking dope. I think if you went 20 songs each, I think you actually gotta go more, because both of these guys have so many dope songs and so many great verses. It would have to be like a 30 for 30 songs, I think, to really like judge it. So I think that'd be dope. Or even Jay-Z versus M, or Nas versus Eminem. That'd be cool. I think one that I think would be dope, but because he has a lot of great songs, but it would have to be like, instead of doing like a longer list, if you shorten it down, give me Snoop Dogg. If you do Snoop Dogg's 10 best songs versus any other rapper's 10 best songs, I think Snoop has the chance to like fucking beat anybody at that point. If you just do like the 10 best songs. But if you were to, like, they say match up Snoop against Jay-Z, right? If you do 10 songs each, I think it's gonna be really close. But if it goes down to 20 or 30 songs, then Jay-Z's whooping Snoop's ass at that point, because Jay-Z's discography is just too fucking deep at that point. But if you do a shorter list with Snoop, I think he can go up against anybody. So that's like the legends, right? That's like the old school guys, or like the legends, the goats right there. But if you want to do one with like newer rappers, or these guys that within the last 10 years, I think Kendrick Lamar versus J. Cole is a good one. I think Kendrick fucking wipes the floor with J. Cole. I mean, I don't think J. J. Cole has a chance to go in song for song with Kendrick, but I know there's a lot of fans that think that would be a good battle. So I would like to see it. I do think it'd be pretty good to watch, and I just think Kendrick makes much better songs. But if you want to go lyric for lyric, it's a lot closer. If you want to go just bars, I think it's a more of a battle. So Kendrick versus Cole is one. Or even like Kendrick versus Lil Wayne, I think it would be very dope. Here's a tough one: Drake versus, I don't know, Drake versus like Kanye or something. And this is where like Drake's, if you want to like compare just lyric for lyric, then I don't think Drake is gonna stand a chance with with some of these people I named already. But if you're gonna go song for song and just like how good that song is versus how good this other song is, then Drake has a very good chance, because we already know Drake has more hits than anybody. So if we're going hit for hit and song for song, it's Drake's gonna give anybody a run for his money at that point. So it just depends on what are you debating. So if you're gonna go lyric for lyric or something like that along the lines, then it's a different battle. But give me Drake versus anyone if you're gonna go song for song. And this is just me. I'm not a super big Drake fan if you listen to the podcast. So, but I do respect that, his his songs. He has some of the biggest hits in hip hop history, and if you're going off of hits and a battle, a song for song battle, then Drake can stand up with anyone in that point. So that would be interesting. I would just be interested in see how the fans would vote that. People watching it on IG. If that was an IG live battle, like who would what the preference of the fans are going to be. They're just going to go because they like that song more. They're going to think, oh, because he can't match up lyrically with this song. So it'd be very interesting. Another one I think would be good: Earl Sweatshirt versus Joey Badass. I think that would be pretty dope. Or even like a Earl Sweatshirt versus MF Doom. I think Doom would fucking destroy Earl Sweatshirt if go song for song competition. But nonetheless, there's a lot of Earl fans that think he's just as good as Doom. I think it's crazy, but there's people that think that. So I could see that being a battle, and they're similar enough where it would be pretty cool battle. So yeah, that's just a few opinions, a few different battles I would like to see happen. What do you guys like to see happen? What kind of battles would you like to see up next? Do you think we'll get more of these? And if so, who do you like to see have another beat battle? What other producers would you like to see have another beat battle, or what rappers would you like to see square off in a song for song battle? So, a topic that's been on my mind lately, and being on hip hop Twitter a lot lately in these last couple of weeks, being quarantined, so I've been spending a lot more time on social media, and on Twitter a lot more than I've ever had before. And on hip hop Twitter, I see this a lot. I follow a lot of hip hop Twitter accounts, and I see this topic always being thrown around. There's always an album being discussed, and it's always asking the question: is this album a classic or not? And for whatever reason, in hip hop, more than any other music genre, the term classic is thrown around so much more loosely compared to any other hip hop. I mean, compared to any other music genre. And I've always wondered why. And I want to just discuss this. Is the term classic in hip hop standards and hip hop terms, is it used too often, or is it just thrown around too lightly? And when I see these conversations on Twitter, a lot of times it's like a recent album that came out like fucking 3 years ago. I'm like, how is this album already a classic, or how are you already just saying like, oh, this is a classic album, this is one of the greatest albums of all time, and you see that shit all the time. So I just want to talk about this. Ask our listeners out there if the term classic gets thrown around too lightly, and is it just a term that people just use on anything they like. So I have the theory as to why in hip hop the term classic album is such a big term in hip hop, and such a facet of hip hop. And I think this goes back to like Illmatic when it came out. When Illmatic came out, it had I'm pretty sure it was the first album, I want to say, that got a 5 mic rating from the Source. And back then, the Source was like mad respected in terms of hip hop publication magazine, especially for the reviews. Like the reviews were like golden back then. People really like looked at those reviews, and those reviews held a lot of weight. And I'm pretty sure, I want to say Illmatic was the first album to get a 5 mic rating right away from the Source. There's albums that the Source would go back and re-rate a couple years later and give it a 5, but not not a 5 right away when the album came out. I think Illmatic was the first to do that, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I think that's why classic is such a big part of hip hop. A classic album, that term is such a big part of hip hop. And I think it goes back to that era. Getting a 5 mic review was like an instant classic album, and the Source popularized like that something being instant classic. Because when Illmatic came out, Illmatic was heralded as an instant classic album by the Source, and they weren't wrong in doing that. It was an instant classic. I mean, it's one of the greatest albums ever made. So they weren't wrong in saying that. So I don't want to like give them like I don't want to blame them, but I think that's the reason why that term classic album in hip hop is such a overused term, and a term that is just, for whatever reason, is always being thrown around because of dating back to that. So that's my theory on it, as to when the term classic really started. And then, because everything after that came out after that, was had to be reviewed right away, and the question had to be asked: is that a classic album or not? And especially in today's social media world, where we want things instantaneously, so as soon as something comes out, we have access to it right away. So an album can come out out of nowhere, and then it's already on every streaming platform. The album can be out, and then you can listen to it 10 times in one night, as to like compared to back in the day where the album came out, but then you had to go to the store and buy the CD, whatever it may be, buy a CD, and listen to it in your CD player or in your car, and it was definitely harder to listen to an album a bunch of times right away when it came out than it is now. So because of the world we're living in today, we can listen to things a lot quicker. We can listen to things over and over within the span of a day or so. So you get these reviews that come out a lot quicker, and then people throw out the term classic. Oh, like this album came out yesterday, it's already, it's a classic album. I mean, I'm not even really like complaining that much about it. I just feel like it is a term that gets thrown around too loosely in hip hop, and I do want to ask, though, this is something I do want to get at people's opinions on, is what makes an album classic? Why is an album considered classic? And I think that's a better conversation to have, as to saying an album is classic just because you like the album, or just because you think every song is really good. It's a classic album. There's a few things that I think makes an album classic. In my opinion, first of all, every song has to be good and great. I think you can get by with having maybe one skippable song on a classic album. That's my criteria. There are some classic albums that have a skip or two. So I think you can get by having maybe one bad song and maybe one other song that's just okay. But you definitely can't get by with having like 2 or 3 skippable songs on a classic album. You just can't. Unless it's maybe a double album. Maybe on a double album you have a little bit more leeway, and you can still get away with having a classic album. But for the most part, maybe one skippable, especially if it's just a one copy. If it's not a double album. But not only that, because there's albums that don't have a skippable track, and all the songs are good, but it's not classic still. And that's where I think a lot of these recent albums are put into. There's a lot, on hip hop Twitter, you see a lot of recent albums get called classics because there's not necessarily a really bad song on there. Maybe there's only one bad song. So they're like, oh, well, all the songs are good. That makes the album classic. False. I think another thing that makes an album classic is it has to have songs that are not just good, but have like all-time great like status, where they're gonna stay around for a long time. Like, there's songs that are never gonna get old. I think a good example for me personally, because I'm a big Jay fan. Like Jay Z's American Gangster is an album that I think is a good example of this, where American Gangster does not have one bad song. Every song on there is good to great. There's not one song that you have to skip every time. The worst song is maybe Hello Brooklyn, and it's not it's not really a bad song. I skip it, but like it's not like a bad song at all. And all the rest of them, the whole album, every song is solid. But I don't think it's a classic, and I'm a big Jay-Z fan, and I still don't think the album's a classic. And the reason why is because there's no moments on that album that you just go back to. Like, there's no there's when you think of American Gangster, there's not that one song that is like a hip hop classic. You gotta have hip hop classic songs on an album too to be considered a classic. Like when we think about like Black Album, right? Black Album, oh shit, like I think about 99 Problems right away. I think about Public Service Announcement. I think about, Moment of Clarity. There's like all-time great moments on there. Some of the greatest songs of that artist's career is on there. Some hip-hop classic songs were on there. American Gangster doesn't have that, and I think that's a good example of like an album that has a lot of good songs, but doesn't have those moments of just, when you first hear it, you're like, damn, this song's gonna be around forever. It doesn't really have those moments on there, so but a lot of people will say that's a classic album because it's a bunch of good songs. So my opinion on it is you gotta wait a couple years, at least 5 years, before you can really call something a classic. I do think there are rare instances where an album is an instant classic, and that's the Illmatic. I think was one of those albums. I think like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was one of those albums where you just know it's like you don't have to wait 5 years. You just know this is a classic album because it's that level of music. It's a few times, that happens rarely, but there's a few times. I think To Pimp a Butterfly was that type of album where you didn't have to wait. You knew this album's gonna have a big impact for a long time, and so there's instances where I think albums are instant classics, but too many times you get people saying this album's already a classic and it just came out. So that's just my opinion on it. I just want to talk about that real quick, and maybe this is another conversation we can have with somebody else. Maybe me and Will can have this conversation as well, because I do think this is something that can be discussed back and forth in hip hop, and so yeah, we might get into it more on another episode. So yeah, that's just my opinion there, and yeah, peace out. All right, you guys, thank you for joining me on this episode, and I'll catch you on the next one.